Okay, I already know it sounds bad, but I, 35 female, and my husband Jeff, 37, are currently expecting a boy, his first child, my second. I got pregnant with my first when I was 18, and his dad was never in the picture. I work as a substance abuse counselor, and I love my job. However, this is where it gets tricky. My job offered me 8 weeks of PTO for when I have our son. I was so happy because I didn't want to return to work right away. Jeff and I got together when I turned 30, and he moved in with me because I own my house. We just got married this year and have talked about childcare multiple times, so he knows I don't want to be a stay-at-home mom. Well, I'm due in November and he just brought this idea up. I was baffled because we've already talked about this, but I guess my mother-in-law and sister-in-law believe I should stay home with our son as a mother and a wife. I just don't understand where their opinions come in because I already know where they stand. Both stayed home with the kids. All 3 of them sat me down to have this talk, and they wanted me to focus on the kids, cleaning up the house, making dinner, and all of that. But I already work and do those things. Well, mother-in-law decided to throw it in my face that I never got to be a stay-at-home mom because I was a single mom going to school and working, which she's not wrong, but it made me angry that she brought it up. I told them that I work so hard to give my son a good life, and having another baby doesn't change my decision to keep doing something I love, and that if they all want someone to take care of the house and kids all day, Jeff should be a stay-at-home dad because I make more money than him, and it would make more sense for him to stay home instead of me. Turned horrible after that. I got yelled at by mother-in-law and sister-in-law that it's not his role as a father to do those things, and that he's the man of the house and should be the one making money. Jeff just stood there not saying anything, and I blew up and reminded all of them that it was my house, not his. I kicked mother-in-law and sister-in-law out, and Jeff was so mad at me that he went with them. He said he won't come back till I apologize to all 3 of them. So, am I the idiot for not wanting to be a stay-at-home mom? Nope, not the idiot. OP, you make more, it's your house, your in-laws are dinosaurs, and your husband just proved that he doesn't have your back. Bonus, here's your to-do list for tomorrow. 1. Change locks. Number 2. Make an appointment to see a family lawyer about custody, parenting time, and child support in your jurisdiction. 3. Research them on the internet in the meantime. 4. Resolve that none of those 3 people gets back in the door unless they provide you with a fulsome, sincere apology. Sorry about the marriage, OP. I hope it was fun while it lasted. The thought of my husband bringing my sister-in-law and mother-in-law into my house to tell me what to do with my life, especially after discussing exactly what I want, makes my blood boil. I'm so sorry you had to go through that. Please reevaluate your relationship with Jeff and whether or not his value systems are compatible with yours. Do you want your son to be taught this drivel about how he needs to grow up to be the man of the house? Do you want the rest of your life to be cooking, cleaning, and taking care of the children for Jeff? Because presumably, he won't lift a finger to help you because that's not his job. Because that's what's going to happen if you stay with this man and let him and his family treat you like this. Please be compassionate to yourself and your children and realize that you deserve far better. My vote is for the husband set up mother-in-law and sister-in-law to deliver this message. And he didn't do it with the goodness in his heart of having the baby have a stay-at-home mom. He did it so OP would take care of him like his mom used to. Flags everywhere. Update. It's currently 1:15 a.m. and Jeff just called me. He informed me that he cleared out our joint bank account and deposited it into his account. Bill money, savings for future trips, and grocery money that he's been thinking. And the only way he'll come home is if he can be responsible for all the finances. And I put his name on the house too. I said absolutely not and hung up. I've already reached out to my boss and I'll be working from home via virtual meetings. I'll be calling and talking to attorneys tomorrow morning to see what my options are. I didn't let Jeff know I'd be home, so I'm sure he'll try to stop me. Where I live, real estate developers have started snatching up family homes, bulldozing them, and building enormous $2 million houses on plots of land. Unfortunately, the houses also stick out horribly in terms of aesthetics. Think single-level brick homes with 3-level gigantic white and black boxes in the middle. My home's been in the family for several generations. We've always been known for having a large, beautiful garden. We invited over kids to help with gardening. We gave away so many veggies. We'd hold parties, etc. It's been a neighborhood treasure for years. Until developers snatched up the lot next door, bulldozed it, and erected an enormous house that blocked the light to most of the garden. Many of us tried to fight it with the city, but everything was denied. It was heartbreaking. Our neighborhood has been changed forever. This was a link to my family, and I almost have had to go through a grieving process for it. The new owners moved in and were not welcomed warmly by the people in the neighborhood. I avoided them for as long as possible. Other than politely waving or nodding, it was a young couple in their early 20s. We finally came face to face, and the woman asked if we could chat. She said she felt like maybe they'd done something wrong when they moved in, or if they weren't pulling in their trash bins or something, being too loud, etc., because people haven't been friendly. The guy says that he's surprised, considering it felt like a nice and somewhat affluent neighborhood. And given the price, he was expecting friendly neighbors. I asked if they had done any research about the area. They said that they moved from California, so no. I said that maybe that was their mistake. They said they didn't know what I meant, so I asked if they've ever looked in our backyard. They said yes, and they said they thought the garden was cute. I said yes. The garden that now has about half the sunlight than before your house was built was a neighborhood treasure. So the guy said, well, it's not our fault you built the garden there, is it? I said, well, you guys got what you paid for, $2 million for a house that everyone in the neighborhood hates. So I said I hoped it was worth it and wished them a nice day. When I told another neighbor about the exchange, she told me that she felt bad for them moving without knowing what they were getting into. Am I the idiot for telling them they got what they paid for? So you unloaded your pent-up anger at the developers, on the couple, who unwittingly bought the house. You are the idiot, OP. That couple did nothing wrong. They bought a house on the market. Now, if they had been the ones to buy the house or land from the previous owner, bulldoze it down, and then build their $1 million mansion, you might have a leg to stand on. But from what you say, the neighborhood is taking out their frustration and anger on an innocent couple. Yeah, but I do get why he'd be angry if instead of, oh, we're sorry we didn't know about your garden, they decided to go with, it's not our fault you built your garden there. When it comes to this kind of mega home, I agree, but I also think places need to change. This is why most grad students live in someone's attic. Many old communities completely boycott any affordable housing, even as the population doubles or more. Mega homes for the rich don't help either, but I dislike the people who want their neighborhoods to stay the same forever just as much. They bought a house. Did you research the neighborhood? Is your garden a big thing, so well known it's in the papers that those people could know about it without talking with the neighbors before moving in? And specific talks. And even then, they didn't design the house, just bought it. It's not their fault, and you are being angry at them as if it is. Also, if the size of your neighbor's house affects how you act, you might want to seek therapy. You take the cake today due to treating people like crap because they apparently stole your sunlight, and you're big mad about it. These people likely had no idea about your garden or what was there before the house they bought was there. It's not their fault that the house was built there. You want to be mad? Be mad at the real estate developers. That's the actual bad guy here, not the people who bought the house. I can't believe this became a conflict. With the weather being so nice, I decided it'd be nice to have a fun little dinner party. So, I invited everyone and their SOs if they had them. One of the SOs is Rick. I've always gotten along with him just fine, but he's one of those guys who tries to make the most bizarre things into his entire personality. The biggest one is that he's a huge garlic guy. He's one of those guys who makes a huge deal out of how he uses 400 cloves of garlic in a dish. I don't eat garlic. I have GERD, gastroesophageal reflux disease, from purging. And unfortunately, my biggest triggers are alcohol and garlic. I'm okay with cooked onions. For some reason, in the past 2 years, my sensitivity to garlic has actually gotten worse. So, I didn't use garlic in the dishes I made. Not a huge deal, right? I have a pantry full of other spices, and I'm not shy about using them. We were eating and I got some compliments on the food. It wasn't anything special, but Rick said he liked it, but felt the food was missing something, and asked how much garlic I used. I said I don't eat garlic, so I didn't include it. He scoffed and was like, how can you not use the most basic ingredients in most meals? That's why it tastes like this. He made a big exaggerated face and put the food down. He then asked why I'd have a dinner party if I had such a limited palate, and that he wouldn't have people over for Thanksgiving dinner if he was a vegetarian. I said I have GERD, dude. Garlic triggers it. He pointed out that I was drinking alcohol. I said yes, I was in fact drinking one hard seltzer that I had flattened, and that these are the only alcoholic beverages I can drink, and that I also had one just in case my body changes its mind. He and I went back and forth until his girlfriend, the one who actually is my friend, told him to chill. Rick got louder and was laughing like, "Come on guys, am I really the idiot here?" With his hands out. One of the other guys said it was a little weird but not a big deal. Anyway, it's a month later and Rick still won't drop it. Instead, he insists that it was an idiot and selfish hosting move to drink the alcohol, but not cook with the garlic because garlic goes in everything. So now I'm curious and thought this would be a fun low-stakes question for you all. Am I the idiot? Why are you friends with this monumental idiot anyway? Someone whose entire personality seems to be about one tiny thing? Who thinks he's the food police? I'm a very keen cook, and garlic is inappropriate for many dishes. Not the idiot, of course. I'm also curious, doesn't he stink 24/7? OP should still invite him, but serve him garlic. Only garlic, several whole roasted garlic bulbs and nothing else. Is that enough garlic for you now, Rick? And make sure you get a vampire costume for Halloween, for his benefit. Rick needs to get his garlic addiction under control. It's affecting his relationships at this point. If my exo acted that way, not simply expressing a preference for garlic, but telling the host it was rude to omit it, I would be mortified. No joke. Possible grounds for breaking up because who behaves that way? Not the idiot open and shut case. My best friend and I have known each other since we were like 3, and we've always been super close. She's the first of us to get married, and I'm so happy for her, and was happy to be asked to be her maid of honor. However, she and I were not expecting her fiancé to consider my ex a close friend now that he's his groomsman. We knew that they kept in touch after I broke up with him, but we had no idea they were friends. What's even worse is that my ex is using this as a way to try and force his way back into my life. She warned me when she found out, and I agreed to one night out with all 6 of us, my best friend, her fiancé, and their bridesmaids and groomsmen. I was paired with her fiancé's brother, the best man, and my ex with her sister, a bridesmaid. But he would not stick around her sister at all. He kept coming over to me. He tried to get me to take him back, and he joked that we should just go and hook up. He touched me a few times and I had to brush him off. He was just intense. Our breakup happened a little over 2 years ago. We worked together for 5 years, lived together, had talked about marriage and babies, and then I heard him mock me to his friends and say disgusting stuff like I was so boring as a person, but at least my body was good so he could drown out the rest of me and just focus on my looks. He mocked me for being sensitive. He also mocked that I had low self-esteem from my childhood relating to my family, and told them details only he and my best friend knew. My best friend asked her fiancé if there wasn't anyone else. He told her that the 2 of them got so much closer in the last 2 years, and that he truly considers him his closest friend now and so on. He said we should be able to deal with being around each other for a few hours. She asked if there was anything she could do to make it easier. But I can't be around him like that. I can't even have him following me around and trying to win me back. He humiliated me. He said things that I never would have expected out of him. He got 5 years of my life and he treated me like that. We agreed that I should just pull out of the wedding. My best friend is so upset and she's upset with her fiancé. He's now angry with me and he told me I should have sucked it up for my best friend and followed through on being her maid of honor because it meant so much to her. He told me I was being petty and I should be able to ignore my ex for the sake of my best friend. I do feel bad. I hate doing this, but I know I'd feel trapped in a nightmare if I had to deal with my ex throughout the wedding. There's no doubt in my mind that I would be miserable. She knows this too, which is why we agreed, but I hate doing this to her. I always dreamed of being her wedding. And now am I the idiot? Not the idiot. The groom prioritizes his friend over his bride's happiness, and he's trying to get you to suck it up. He could have chatted with your ex and told him. His behavior was unacceptable and if he tried to get close to you he'd be dropped. But he preferred pressuring you so he could have what he wanted. I tell your friend that her fiancé is trying to pressure you as that would be a red flag to me. Not wanting to be touched and harassed by a creepy ex-boyfriend isn't being petty. What the heck is wrong with this guy? Also, you did ignore your ex, but it didn't stop him from harassing and touching you against your will. And ignoring your no. What else was he expecting you to do? Also, does he want drama at his wedding? I hope your friend realizes who she's about to marry. Yeah, I think you need to step away entirely. And if the ex is continuing to harass you, look into a restraining order. Good luck to the bride. Her fiancé sounds like a real charmer too, being that he knows the history and still allows this. I, 20 female, am currently 30 weeks along. I live with my parents and pay rent, utilities, and other essentials. Ever since I found out I'm pregnant, there's been a lot of tension in the house. And it feels like my parents' marriage is getting worse because of me. When I first found out I was pregnant, my dad flipped his lid because I wasn't married and because I didn't know who the father was. My mom defended me for most of his crap throughout my pregnancy, and was very supportive but very disappointed in my dad for his behavior, and it's been ruining their marriage. Last week my dad demanded I move out, and I refused since I paid rent and mom doesn't want me to move out. As usual, mom defended me, but they had a big fight. I'm feeling like an idiot since I'm ruining my parents' marriage over this when I could move out, but I don't know where to go and need my mom's support. Am I the idiot? You are the idiot. You're an adult. If you want to have a baby, that's fine. But there's no reason to expect anyone else to support your child. Babies are loud and disruptive. Your father's done raising his kids, so why do you expect him to start over to raise yours? Not the idiot. You are not ruining your parents' marriage. Your dad is. Your mom is finding out your dad's beliefs around unwed or single mothers. You getting pregnant and having a child has not ruined your parents' marriage. However, your dad's behavior is. I'm really glad your mom is being so supportive, and I hope this situation resolves in whatever way it needs to. You have to prioritize your well-being and the well-being of the baby. Your dad's behavior affects your emotional well-being and your unborn babies. However, he feels it's not important as you and this child, but I'm pretty sure you have some clue about the baby's dad. You might have to pay for some paternity tests, but you need to find out who it is and make them contribute. Don't let him off the hook. I don't know if you want to know who the father is, but your child has the right to know and to be fine. My fiancé, 27 male, and I, 25 female, have an infant son. We're overjoyed at being parents, but most of my in-laws refuse to even see our baby because of our decision concerning his name. My in-laws have a tradition of giving the firstborn son of every generation the same name. Let's say it's Peter. This has been going on for about 7 generations already, and they're very serious about it. My fiancé's eldest cousin was the latest person to get named Peter. Every one of his cousins has only had daughters so far. So our baby is the first son of his generation and consequently should get the name. I have no problem with the name Peter, and I would have been okay with naming my son that. Unfortunately, that was also my uncle's name, who died before I was born. I won't get into details, but it was tragic and traumatizing for my family. My father never got over losing his younger brother. My grandmother asked the family not to name any of our future children Peter during her lifetime. My mother-in-law and father-in-law knew about this promise and at first seemed to be not only okay with us avoiding the name Peter, but also supportive of the one we chose. However, my grandmother sadly passed away when I was 7 months pregnant. We traveled for her funeral. On our last days there, my in-laws called to offer me their condolences. Then my mother-in-law asked me if I would think about the name Peter now. Suddenly, they were insistent that the name we chose was awful, and we had to honor their tradition. According to them, they only had agreed to make an exception for us for my grandmother's sake, and had no obligation to keep it now that she had passed. My family agrees that while we don't have to avoid the name anymore, it still doesn't feel right to use it. My fiancé also agrees with me, but his parents spent the last weeks of my pregnancy trying to convince us to change our minds about the name. When our baby was born and we named him what we wanted, my in-laws were furious that we had broken a 7-generation-old family tradition. Some of them hadn't previously wanted to name their sons Peter, but did it anyway for the family's sake. They said our decision was selfish and that my family should have moved on by now. This has nothing to do with whether my family's moved on. It just felt like a betrayal of my grandmother and uncle's memories to even consider using the name. My father-in-law offered us $1,000 to change our son's name to Peter after he was born. That was 2 months ago, and neither of my fiancé's parents have met the baby or seen us since I was pregnant. Most of my in-laws are on their side, and this is causing a huge rift between my fiancé and his family. He assures me he's fine, but I'm starting to feel really guilty about this. Am I the idiot? Edit. The tradition started as far as I know when OG Peter died and his son, also named Peter, named his firstborn after his father. Peter III had the first son of the following generation and did the same thing. That one died before having children, so his sister gave the name to her son and so on. The name Peter is very common in my country, and none of them ever get bullied over it, and the fact that it was also my uncle's name isn't as unlikely as one might think. Also, middle names aren't used in my country. Most people get the maternal surname before the paternal one instead. Some hadn't wanted to name their kid but did it for the family's sake. Have you broken a pact with Satan or something? Not the idiot. Family name traditions are weird. You can do whatever you want and name your baby. Keep pushing the "I'm honoring my late grandmother's final wishes" part so they see how unhinged they sound, asking you to flout this. Lunatics should never be around babies or kids or me or you. Seriously? Do you live on the set of Dynasty? Ugh. Also, as a grandma, the idea of rejecting a child based on a name is simply trifling. It's downright shallow, petty, and a horrid representation of one's integrity. Honestly, the longer these people avoided my child, the less their value would be worth in my child's life. Who would want such people around after a while? What would they bring to the table for my child? How would people like this positively enrich their development? I feel bad for Opie's partner as this behavior surely has hurt him. As an aside, once again, tradition is a euphemism for misogyny. Note only male children have a special name and all the female children were not fought over. Presumably, no one cared what they were called. All the more reason to end this now. Update. Am I the idiot for breaking my fiancé's family tradition by naming my son what I wanted? Thank you so much to everyone who commented and offered support. A lot has happened since, so I'd like to give you an update. About a week after my post, my fiancé's parents contacted us. They apologized for their behavior and begged me to meet my son. They said they were ready to leave the naming debacle behind and truly wanted to be involved in their grandson's life. We were skeptical, but invited them over to meet the baby. The visit went well. They began coming over almost every day during the next 3 weeks. I noticed neither of them ever called my son by his name, but I didn't point it out. Things seemed good for the first time in months between my fiancé and his parents. One day, my fiancé was helping my father-in-law with something at our place, so my mother-in-law and I went to the park with my baby. I had to go to the bathroom sometime later, so I left him in the stroller with her. When I returned, she was sitting on a park bench, chatting with a woman who was cooing over my son, so I went over there and introduced myself as son name's mom, and she said, "Oh, I thought his name was Peter." I didn't say a word, and neither did my mother-in-law. She followed me to the car, and we went back to my apartment. On the way there, I texted my fiancé about what had happened. When we arrived, he kicked both his parents out of our place. He'd read my text and confronted his father. Thankfully, my father-in-law is a terrible liar and confessed immediately. Apparently, both my in-laws only call my son Peter. That includes whenever they're talking about him, every time they introduce him to someone else, and even baby talking to him on the few occasions that they were left alone with him. Neither of them is embarrassed by this and thinks they're in the right. We're heartbroken, especially my fiancé, not only because his parents can't let go of their pride, but also because the name we chose for our son means a lot to both of us. I blame myself for encouraging my fiancé to allow them near our son. I was raised in a different city than all my grandparents, and I always wished they could have been more involved in my life. Losing my grandmother didn't help. Pretty much every doubt I had only existed because I thought it would be important for my son to grow up with all of his parents around. But now all my guilt is gone. They don't deserve to be in his life if they can't respect my son enough to call him by his name. I hope they enjoyed the 3 weeks they had with their grandson, because that's all they're getting until they get their heads out of their butts. Yikes! Are they this psychotic and unhinged about other things in life or just this one issue? What a weird hill for them to die on. We can be grateful you found this out now, because if you play your cards right, by the time they see your son again, he'll know his name. According to my fiancé, they've always been a little entitled, but I never really saw them enough to be able to say that. When the lady from the park asked about his name, it did cross my mind that she might think I was a kidnapper. However, his name is written on one of his blankets, which calmed me down a little. Still, I can't help but think of what my mother-in-law would have done had the woman threatened to call the cops. I seriously can't wrap my head around this. They're throwing away a son, a grandson, future grandchildren, and a daughter-in-law. Family members that some people would give anything to have. That's the real atrocity. That's something for them to feel ashamed about. That's literally so tacky and disgusting of them. I'm sure your husband is so embarrassed and ashamed that his family's being this way. He probably feels guilty, but it's so hurt. I'm so sorry. Oh, wow, just wow. We recently moved in with my in-laws because I'm 31 weeks pregnant with our first child. And I feel like I need my mother-in-law for support since I've been pretty terrified the entire third trimester and my parents don't live nearby. My husband didn't want to move in with them, and the only reason he did was that I told him I'd go without him, and he could stay in our home alone until after the baby's born. His parents are great and very close, so that's not why he didn't want to temporarily move in with them. We've thought about it a lot before we moved. We're still arguing about it now because he thinks it wasn't necessary. I'm stressing over nothing, which maybe I am, but that doesn't magically make the stress disappear. He said multiple times that I forced him to move here, but he could have stayed at our house like I said. I can't expect my mother-in-law to visit every day, and I feel better in a house with other people around. My husband does sometimes work from home, but he's usually holed up in his office, so it's like he's not here anyway, so this is better for me. My in-laws are more than happy to have us here. But my husband is still sulking and gives me an annoyed look whenever his parents say something about his habits that he doesn't like. Am I the idiot? You are the idiot. Did you consider that there may be a reason your husband doesn't want to live with his mother? Also, dropping do this or I'm leaving in a marriage is unhealthy. Not only do this or I'm leaving, but it's also do this or I'm leaving with your unborn child and won't be back until after their birth. What a crappy ultimatum. Understandable that you want support, but to upheave the entire household and move in with in-laws just because. Sorry, but that's the nuclear option in marriage. What do you say if he says fine and then you don't get his mother because you left him? Everyone around you has to change their lives around because you're afraid. Of what exactly? Grow up, lady. You decided to have a child, not them. Your self-centered, entitled attitude is out of control. I talked to a therapist about anxiety as it can and might only get worse from here. Your doctor must be informed that you moved into your in-laws' house because you're too scared to be alone for labor, or when the baby comes. I disagree. OP is not the idiot. When people ask for help, they're the bad guy or girl. When they don't, they're also the bad guy or girl. What the heck do you people want? She said she needed and wanted help and that she'd like to stay with her mother-in-law because they would be happy to help her. Why is this a problem? If this was her own mother, would anyone blink an eye? Childbirth is a big deal. It's natural to feel some anxiety as a first-time mom. How fortunate that she has supportive in-laws and a good relationship with her mother-in-law. My wife, 31 female, and I, 36 male, had been married for 2 years now. And she has a very regimented wellness and mindfulness routine. She wakes up at 5 a.m., does yoga in the spare room, goes on a quick run and comes home to make a smoothie using one of those loud Nutri Ninja blenders, and will get on with her day. She also meditates in there, journals and does other things that I can't disrupt her because it's her personal time. She was like this before I met her, and it was clear that if I wasn't on board with this aspect of her routine, she doesn't want to pursue anything with me. While I'm not thrilled she has the whole room for herself, I did ask if I could put my PC in there so it's not in the dining room space. It was there before I moved in with her, so I made my peace with it. My sister's coming to town with her partner and young daughter, young grammar school age. We both agreed to let them stay with us to save money. My wife wants them to sleep in the living room because we have multiple comfortable sofas for them to sleep on. While there was enough room, I made my case for buying air mattresses for them and setting them up in my wife's spare room. I also asked her if she would part with her smoothie making at least until they wake up so they aren't disturbed in the morning. My wife is vehemently opposed to giving up her room and smoothies. She doesn't think the room will be comfortable for them. No carpets and it's got huge windows and massive mirrors on one wall, and says that if I'm using this situation to disrupt her routine, which I apparently hate, I'm not sure where she got that from since I've never asked her to change it. We're in for a disagreement over where they should stay, and my wife is even threatening to not allow them to stay and have them get a hotel for the visit. Am I the idiot? I don't think giving up the room is that hard to ask for my family's comfort, and it's only 3 days. As someone who's currently in the throes of a deep dark depression, I feel like your wife's routine was possibly born out of an absolute necessity, and that it may be the thing that keeps her functional. I would say that she was very clear with you about how important her routine was, so I think you are the idiot for wanting her to change it. I do also understand that she may be seen as non-accommodating, but it was never a secret. Some things that look selfish are more than what they seem from the outside. I don't care if he agreed. Anyone who needs to run a blender early in the morning with guests is selfish and needs therapy to work through their issues. I'm a creature of habit too, but that's not an excuse for rudeness. She needs to work through her issues in therapy. Dominating an environment and being unable to care for others is a big issue. Also, people can readjust their positions and evolve over time. Then the guests should stay in a hotel. They can also readjust their positions. She made it clear she has a routine. She's trying to work with you by letting them stay with y'all. But you're so desperate to interrupt a routine that's somehow bugging you that you refuse to see it. Perhaps you should ask yourself why you are so resentful of this routine. Is it because it's her time with herself and she isn't paying attention to you? Or because you're jealous that you don't have that same dedicated time allotted for you to have your time? Look at yourself and figure it out soon. Update. Thank you for all the advice, everyone. I've decided not to push this issue any further with my wife, and my sister and family can use the sofas, or I'll pay partly for a hotel for them. I do plan on asking my wife about her routine. She thinks that because the living room and kitchen are separated by a room, there's no need to muffle the blender sound on top of more than we already do with the insulation pads and a shut door. My wife, 28, has recently gone back to work after a long break after our daughter, kindergarten, was born. She's experienced a few hard days at work. I, 32 female, thought it might lift her mood up a little bit if I cook something for her with the I don't cook around the house because of my work schedule, but I decided to do it for her to help boost her mood. We made our dining room into a restaurant. I got us both chef hats and matching aprons and we cooked. While cooking, we made a bit of a mess in the kitchen. We were almost done when I got a call from her. She said her mom, my mother-in-law, they live in a different state and we barely see each other, had come to pay a visit and asked me to prepare the guest room if I could and said she'd be home shortly. So I panicked and couldn't clean up before they arrived. They came home to a messy kitchen and my daughter acting as a restaurant manager. My wife adored the whole thing, but her mom immediately said how we lived with all this mess was disappointing. She said serving someone food like this in their home was ridiculous and made fun of the process. My wife told me to just let it go, but somehow I felt like a huge idiot because the timing could not be worse and my wife and I stayed up cleaning the mess that night. Am I the idiot? Your mother-in-law is the idiot with no notice? What was it, a surprise inspection? You did something wonderful with your daughter and she'll always remember it. Your wife isn't upset. She has more love for you because you did it. Not the idiot. Mother-in-law can stay at Motel 6. Motel 6 sounds like an appropriate punishment. Do you know what is ridiculous? People showing up unannounced, staying for the night, and daring to complain and mock you and your kid. Perhaps she'd be happier somewhere else like her state. What an idiot. What kind of relationship does your wife have with her mother that even though the mother-in-law lives in a different state and you had zero notice she was showing up? I would not be cool with that at all. Your mother-in-law being judgy and rude blows my mind. Cooking makes things messy and she was a last-minute guest, not to mention the restaurant thing is adorable. Oh honey, your mother-in-law needs a reality check and a respect for others. I, female 33, lost my husband very unexpectedly 7 years ago. We knew each other from a very young age and married when we graduated college. I've known his family for almost my entire life, and they're the closest I have to actual family. My own family situation has always been problematic. I became very close with his parents in particular. I will still call them my in-laws, and we supported each other heavily through the grief process. We didn't have children before he passed, but we were trying. I began slowly dating again 4 years ago, mostly casual dates and nothing serious. In-laws were broadly supportive. I told them I was ready to date and they said okay but didn't want to know the details. As a result, I only ever spoke about my dating life vaguely and infrequently to them. Around the same time I got a big promotion and began to spend a couple of months a year in Paris for work, global issue permitting. Then 1 year ago I met Armand, male 38, and started my first serious relationship since being widowed. Given Armand lives in Paris, our relationship is based there. While we have traveled quite a lot together, we have yet to go to the US together. He hasn't met my in-laws but I have told them I'm dating someone. Around Christmas we found out I was pregnant. This was a total surprise as we weren't trying. We've since decided that I'll move to France permanently instead of splitting my time between the US and France so we can raise a family together. Unfortunately, it isn't really possible for Armand to move to the US. He works in the art industry and his studio and backers are all Europe-based. I told my in-laws and they were deeply upset. They said I was depriving them of their only opportunity to have a grandchild. My husband was an only child. Then they accused me of moving on too quickly and not loving my husband. In the end, we had a huge argument and they demanded that I leave all my husband's belongings from our apartment, his clothes, personal effects, etc. to them when I moved to Paris. They also demanded my engagement ring, which is a family heirloom. They said that they should have these because while I've moved on, he'll never stop being their son. I said no. These things are all treasured memories from my life with him, and I never want to forget. They have threatened legal action to recover the ring in particular. I don't think they have a proper legal right, but I can see the hurt I'm causing them with my choices, and maybe by giving them what they asked for, they'll be able to have closure. Am I the idiot for continuing to refuse? Then they accused me of moving on too quickly and I stopped reading right there. So, he passed away 7 years ago and they say she's moving too fast. What happened to OP and the in-laws is horribly unfair and tragic, but after 7 years OP deserves to find love again. The in-laws really should see a therapist to address this. You are not the idiot. You didn't divorce your husband. He passed away. The person you chose to spend your life with, and that was taken away from you way too soon. Unfortunately, he was taken from them too soon as well. I would try to find a compromise, which may be giving them the ring and you keeping the rest, or finding a few things of sentimental value and giving them those, but ultimately this was your husband. These are your memories with him, and you'll never stop loving him just because you found someone else to love as well. You are the idiot. The ring should absolutely be going back to the family though. No matter how you feel about it being given to you, the heirloom is meant to be passed on to a future generation family member at some point, which again isn't possible in this case because you two never had a child together. You're moving on and your family's now with another bloodline family. The heirloom ring is not meant to be with that family at any point. I'm sorry, but this is a very bad take. Opie's a widow. Widows do not lose their place in a family. The ring will go where she sees fit because she's the rightful owner. Opie, it's your choice one way or another. However, I wondered how you having a baby with your new partner is depriving them of a grandchild. Totally bemused by that. If they want to be considered your child's grandparents, the last thing they should be doing is making petty demands. Update. After the funeral, I already gave many of my husband's possessions to my in-laws. What I kept were some clothes that reminded me of happy times. Things with his handwriting on them. Memories from trips, etc. And I want to keep those. It's not like I'll be lugging a huge amount of things to Paris. It's not unreasonable that I keep these. They're memories we made, not with his parents. It was worth clarifying that I don't have a separate wedding band. We couldn't find one we liked which matched the ring. So my engagement ring is also my wedding band, which my husband put on my finger in the church. I do wear the ring frequently, and it's the only thing I wear with any regularity. I really don't want to lose the relationship with my in-laws. They've always been so kind to me before all of this happened. For example, I've been spending every major holiday like Christmas, etc. with them for the past decade. But neither do I want to bend to their unreasonable behavior. Moving to France and going completely silent isn't an option. I do want to repair the relationship in the long term. Ultimately, I'd love them to visit us. My 25 male stepdad has a gardening business. It's normally just him, but my brother 18 has been a big help and worked for him a lot over the years. The clients love my brother. He has a good work ethic and gets the job done properly and quickly. On the other hand, my stepbrother 29 has worked for our stepdad a handful of times. Unfortunately, every time his work was sloppy and slow, and he spent the majority of his time on the phone, so stepdad never hired him again. Recently, stepdad has been sick. His body's just giving out on him, and our mom's forcing him to retire before he kills himself from work. He wants to give the business over to my brother since he has the work ethic and the rapport with the clients like him. My brother is basically our stepdad's mini-me, lol. My sister, stepsisters, and I are all okay with this since we feel our brother deserves it with the work he's put in and how he's helped build up the business. Our stepbrother, on the other hand, is angry and thinks he should get it since he's the biological child. I know I keep saying stepdad here, but that's just for clarity's sake. And he's very much our father and couldn't care less about biology. When our stepbrother was having his little fit about it, I told him to get over it and that he couldn't even hold a normal job, let alone run a business. Am I the idiot? Edit. The relationship is strained since stepbrother used to steal from him and us. He barely even sees any of us now, and that's not from our lack of trying. I don't even think he's met my stepsister's young son. Not the idiot. It might have been harsh the words you gave your stepbro, but honestly, that's the reality of the situation. It's dad's choice who he gives his business to, and he chose your brother, who would take care of it very well and is the person most likely to carry on the legacy. Would your stepbrother have been just as angry if your father had sold it to a stranger? He had nearly 10 years on your brother to build the rapport with your dad and his clients needed for this responsibility. This failure's on him. He saw your stepdad's hard work as something he could benefit from by slacking and doing none of the work going forward. I'm glad your stepdad and your siblings have a backbone. Your stepbrother's just looking to mooch, and that's it. Please ensure your dad gets all this in writing and certified by his wife and an attorney. If something unexpected happens to dad, the whole situation can become a crap show and fast. Get it in writing now so that the business, including the client list and physical assets, mowers, trucks, tools, all go to brother. You owe your stepbrother nothing, and if he keeps harassing you, feel free to block him. Backstory. My mother-in-law lived 4 hours from our city. Last year, she decided to sell her house and move near the family. She recently closed on another house here as her house was under contract. My wife stayed home overseeing some work on the new house and painting. My daughter, a first grader, and I went to my mother-in-law's house to get her moved out. My mother-in-law is the type of lady that exalts males on a glorified pedestal. Over the years, she's made numerous inappropriate remarks about my body build or my appearance. She's even gone as far as asking very personal questions. Nonetheless, her mouth has gotten her in significant trouble. With that said, when we arrived, she seemed to have been minding her manners at first. However, she commented to my daughter that when she gets older, she should marry a man just like her father. Later that night, we had an argument. My kid didn't eat dinner because she had a stomachache. My mother-in-law demanded she helps clean the kitchen, and said I should be relaxing instead. My argument was, why should she have to clean up from dinner when she didn't even eat? The next morning, my daughter slept in a bit, which irritated my mother-in-law. She commented that my wife is lazy. That's where her granddaughter gets it from. It made me angry considering all the work my wife has been doing to her new house. An hour later, my daughter got out of bed. I was outside when my mother-in-law was putting socks on my kid and said, "Don't ever get fat like your mother." I didn't know about that comment until the next day. As they were packing boxes, I overheard my mother-in-law telling my daughter that her mother never wanted her. For the record, that's not true. My mother-in-law was hounding my wife to end the pregnancy because she said my wife would blow up even bigger, and that having kids ruins lives. My child was upset and hurt. My instinct was to get her away from that environment. We got lunch and I took her to the beach to distract her mind. We talked it over and I promised her what her grandmother had said was not true. I called my wife and she and I spoke for a while. While they were on the phone, the comment about not getting fat like your mother was brought to my attention. We went back to the house and I gathered our belongings and we left. Outside sat several pieces of furniture in a few large boxes. My mother-in-law tried hiring movers after we left but none were available. Overnight it rained, which ruined everything. My brother-in-law called me an idiot for letting her furniture get ruined, and also claimed that it was elder abuse. A week later I received a handwritten bill requesting $4,000 for the ruined furniture. My mother-in-law wrote how saddened she was to realize my wife had brainwashed and demasculized me. The move occurred on the 1st of the year and yesterday, I received an additional handwritten letter stating that I'll be sued if I don't pay for the damages. Yes, Your Honor. I'm suing my son-in-law for damages. He left because I intentionally inflicted emotional trauma on his daughter. No, he wasn't being paid for this work. No, he was under no contractual obligation to complete the job. No, I made no efforts to cover my own items with tarps, garbage bags, etc. when I realized it was raining. Yeah, I don't see that playing out really well for her in court. Let her sue you and waste her own time and resources. She has nothing supporting her claim. That's wild. Your mother-in-law is a narcissist. Politely let her know you will deduct it from what she owes from your wife and daughter's past and future therapy bills to deal with the trauma she created by being awful. Not the idiot, and I hope your entire family goes no contact with this cruel and toxic woman. Sadly, I think it's going to get worse. I agree that no contact would be ideal, but knowing mother-in-law's moving closer makes me think that won't be the case, at least not right away. OP's wife is likely far too used to her mother's mistreatment, which makes it harder to build the boundaries necessary. If she does try to take a stand, you know her mom will use moving closer as a guilt trip and manipulation tactic. I, 22 female, will graduate from nursing school next June. I've started looking for jobs and I've been thinking I could try being a particular nurse, those that you hire to take care of a patient in their own home or if they need medical care 24/7. I prefer that for now as I got very anxious during my practices in hospitals. There are many patients and it's a very stressful situation if you don't have much experience. I plan to work as a domestic nurse for half a year, and then try again to do work in a clinic or hospital after gaining experience. Well, I have a brother who's a young teen. He has autism and he's disabled from his waist down. My parents asked me if I'd be willing to work for them taking care of my brother. I said it was okay for me. Patient is a patient. Then they asked me how much the family discount was to consider hiring me. I told them they'll have to pay me full price if they wanted me to nurse my brother. There's no such thing as a family discount. They got angry. They told me I was doing this for them and for my brother, and that there's stuff more important than money. What I'm asking is not unreasonable after all. I have to take my brother to therapy, shower him, clean him up, feed him, give him his medication, etc. All the same stuff I'd have to do with any other patient. I think I'm asking for fair pay that's consistent with how much work I'll do. I'll charge £25 per hour, which is the average where I live. I don't think I'm being too unreasonable. They told me there's stuff more important than money. Like what? Gems? They're welcome to pay you in those too. Of course, since money's so unimportant, your parents should have no problem giving that worthless cash to you. LOL. I hate parents that try to take advantage of a child's success for their gain. You are not the idiot, but I really don't think you should start your professional career by working for your seemingly entitled parents. 1. You need the real-world experience of interacting with new people. You might think of doing this through a care company. 2. You'll need a valid reference when you get ready to return to a hospital or clinical situation. Working for your parents is different. 3. You need to start earning for yourself so that if you do or say anything they don't like, they can't hold your wages over your head. Family and business do not mix. OP. Excellent advice. I also foresee hours being an issue with this situation. OP is scheduled from 8 to 5, but her parents expect her to stay later or come in early because it's family and family helps out. Also, I hate to think it, but I can't help but wonder if OP's parents would sabotage a reference to keep them from progressing in their career, so they have to keep working for their family. Your parents are tired of taking care of your brother, and want you to start doing it so it's not their responsibility anymore. They should want you to start your professional and independent life well, which means watching you get a full-time job or agreeing to pay you full price for your services. To be honest, I think £25 an hour is way too low for this kind of care you want to provide. This would be the family discount. They're asking you to set up a recipe for resentment and you don't have to play that game. So this happened yesterday. I came home from work in the evening and saw something cooking on the stove. I asked my boyfriend and he said he was boiling salmon. I was taken aback, like completely. I asked him to repeat what he said and he so casually said it again. I was like, EW, who boils salmon? He made a face and didn't reply. I told him it wasn't right and that I never heard of salmon being boiled like an egg in water type of boiling. He said it was all right and he liked it cooked that way. I called him dumb for this, to which he reacted by snapping and saying, "Who the heck says I can't boil salmon?" I said, common sense. He replied, "Screw common sense. I bet it's no longer common sense to eat an apple from an apple tree in this time and age." We had an argument and he started ignoring me, saying he felt hurt and disrespected when I called him dumb. He's now waiting for an apology. Am I the idiot? I called my boyfriend dumb because he likes his food cooked differently than I do. I actively sought him out, insulted him based on something that had zero impact on me, and demanded he fights back, and now he feels disrespected. I think he should apologize. Oh wow, you are the idiot. A massive one at that. This. OP sitting here like, what idiot boils salmon while high-class restaurants are off poaching salmon and charging top dollar for it? OP is acting like a spoiled toddler who's only been raised on chicken nuggets. Poaching/boiling salmon is very much a thing. It's funny you're getting all bent out of shape and upset when you're the one who called him dumb. Oh, Gordon Ramsay, he didn't even ask you to eat it. He cooked it for himself. He likes it and it's cooked, so food safety is not an issue either. Mind your own business. OP, don't call people names, especially people you love. He feels hurt and disrespected because you use disrespectful language while criticizing his perfectly acceptable choice. You owe him an apology and to